Well, hey, welcome to the Muddy Boots podcast. My name is Matt, and I'm one of the hosts, and your other host is Roger Button. He's a chaplain here at the YMCA, which is where we're at. Beautiful place, right?
Thank you. Yeah, I like it a lot.
Well, you seem to like it a lot. You're here quite a bit.
Yes.
Doing quite a bit.
Yes.
So part of what we're going to do here on the Muddy Boots podcast is first today we're going to explain, since this is episode 1, we're going to explain what the heck is Muddy Boots, because a lot of you are probably really confused about that and what that means. So we're going to go over that today and basically just let you know what this podcast is all about, what it's going to be like, and how we're going to go about it. So Roger, who is this podcast brought to us by? Because we have some pretty generous donors as well.
Yeah, and without them, we wouldn't be doing any of this. Washington Trust Bank is our main sponsor, and we really appreciate them. If you need a bank, go to them.
Yes, our sponsor today is Washington Trust Bank. With over 40 locations across Oregon, Washington, and Idaho, Washington Trust is the oldest and largest privately held commercial bank in the Northwest. Washington Trust believes in doing what's right for their communities and is proud to sponsor YMCA of Columbia-Willamette. Washington Trust Bank, member FDIC. Okay, so Roger, what is muddy? When we talk about muddy boots, when we bring up that word or that phrase, what does that mean? Where did that come from?
Well, that's a great question, Matt. So I like to paddle a canoe, and so one day when I was putting the canoe in the water, I stepped off into quite a mud hole, and I was stuck. I was literally stuck in the mud. And, it's loud in my head. And all of a sudden, it just came, oh my gosh, this is what it feels like when you're stuck. I don't care what you're stuck with, what it is, but you're like stuck in the mud. And so I worked my way out of it, and I looked down, and I got all this mud on my boots, right? And I'm thinking, okay, I got myself unstuck, but now I got muddy boots. And so if you're ever stuck, right, you're ever struggling with something, I don't care what it is, the tape's in your head or whatever, look for somebody with muddy boots. Basically somebody who's been stuck, got unstuck, and knows how to get unstuck and move on with your life.
So kind of the idea is really being there for each other, but also looking for people who have been through something. So the idea of us wanting to go through life with people who have gone through life kind of thing.
Exactly. And it's more than just that they've gone through it, but they've healed from it. People have gone through a lot and they've never healed. And I've always, my big saying is hurt people hurt people. If they're not healed yet, no. But once they get healed, then you have something you can work with.
Right. So you started a blog not too long ago. Well, actually a long time ago. You restarted it not too long ago because of some stuff that was going on in your own life, right?
Correct.
And so can you talk a little about that? Because I know that the Muddy Boots came up in that, and that has really infiltrated the Y in some really cool ways. So what brought that about, and how are you moving that forward in the Y?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've been in the Y since 2006 as a chaplain. And my psychologist called it death by 1,000 cuts. There wasn't one big impetus. It was just a lot of things that had gone on in my life, including cancer, that had brought me to the point of not just suicide ideation. I had made a plan. I was in the midst of saying goodbye to everyone, whether they knew it or not, so that I could just go home. I just wanted to go home. And obviously, I was intervened. Somebody figured it out and intervened, and I'm not. But that process brought me into talking about it with my CEO, Tyler Wright. And he says, I want you to write about it in your blog. And so I did. And so walking through that process is what I did in the blog.
And what was some of I guess, what brought you out of it. So I know that we've talked a little bit about muddy boots. You had muddy boots and when you were stuck, right? So what were some of the key things that got you unstuck? For instance, for somebody who's struggling, who's watching this right now.
Yeah.
Who's struggling, they're in the mud.
Yeah, they're in the mud.
What are they looking for?
Well, it's always different, right? We have people that they'll announce that they want to commit suicide. And those are the ones you can really get into and help, right? And then you got the ones like me that are the quiet ones. The ones that I've got good coping skills, a lot of humor. So you're not going to pick up on it, right? Mm-hmm. Unless you're really paying attention. And that's the thing, is people around you paying attention. Because once you get to that point, you're not going to bring yourself out. I was just lucky. I had people around me, including my wife, that just wouldn't let me go. She literally hung on to me for 3 solid days, afraid to let me out of her sight, because she knew that if she did, I would. And got into my psychologist, and we got to walk through it. And honestly, writing about it and helping others helped me. When I would write and people would say, "That's me. You're writing about me." And I was like, "Oh, wow." And so it brought me through this whole process until I ended up wrestling with God.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about that. Wrestling with God. What did that look like?
Well, and I always like to say, I wish he would have told me at the front end of the night. Instead of at the end, I got a lot more sleep.
Yeah, he doesn't. Right? He doesn't tend to do that.
No. And the running joke is I almost threw a hip out wrestling with him. You can look that up in a book somewhere. But what it was God finally got to the point where he said, "Roger, I healed you from this years ago. Years ago, I healed you from this. You are still healed. You put yourself back in that prison cell of despair, anger, and depression all by yourself. The door is wide open. Just walk out the door." Now, it sounds simple, but it's not. But that was the big piece with me, is my relationship with God and him being there with me and for me.
No, that's beautiful. That's, I think there's a beauty in, obviously, God speaking to us, and there's just something about that is healing in and of itself. I think there's also something healing about when people band together and community comes together. So, like, not too long ago, we all, after all this had happened and a lot of this was going on, we all decided to get a tattoo together.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So you're showing that camera, I'm showing this one.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got this, I'm with you all the way.
Yeah. And that came out of, in the midst of it, I was still battling it all, and I was writing about it. And the staff of the Y read my blog. A lot of them read my blog. And so I came in one day, and my door has a glass on it, and it said, "We love you, Roger," on it, letting them know that I am loved. And then I came in, and it had 1 Samuel 14:7 on it, which is, "I'm with you all the way," which is a story about the armor bearer to Jonathan when the Philistines came and they were attacking. And he said, "I've got to go see their encampment." And the armor bearer goes, "You're nuts. We're going to die. They're going to kill us." He goes, "I got to risk it. I got to see what I'm up against." And the armor bearer said, "Well, I know we're going to die, but I'll go with you because I'm with you all the way." And when staff and friends started getting this tattoo to show solidarity, it turned into our chaplain mantra. All of our volunteer chaplains are getting this because it's hard not to help somebody when you have this tattooed on your arm.
Right. It's kind of hard to say, "Oh, sorry, I got something to do tonight."
I'm with you most of the way, or some of the way. I'll go to 7-Eleven with you or something. Yeah, I know.
Until it gets really hard, then
yeah.
So what's so like? Speaking of that,
yeah,
because we've both had friends that have been with us all the way.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a difference between when someone says, "Hey, I'm with you."
Oh yeah.
And Roger, I'm with you all the way.
Yeah.
What's the difference? I know you got this from somewhere.
Yep.
The Navy, right?
Yeah.
So what ties this in for you as far as like, what does it really mean to be with you all the way?
That's good. Military has all these different aspects and everything else. But the one thing I learned in the Navy was I was coming home. Dead or alive, I was coming home. It didn't matter if we'd gotten an argument. Didn't matter if I was mad at the person or whatever. They were coming home and I was coming home. Or we were all going to die trying. If you drowned, I'm drowning with you. I don't let go. That's with you all the way. It's a little more raw than what a lot of people want to talk about. Yeah. And that's kind of where I live. Even with this, the podcast and the blog, it was pretty scary to be that open, transparent, and vulnerable on a blog. I always wondered how Manning did it, now and all those guys, all these spiritual directors that were, they were open. I was like, wow, because the church can be a pretty judgmental place. But when you get to the point where you care more about others, truly, than yourself, it doesn't matter what they say to you, as long as you're helping someone else.
Right.
And we can pull the mask off and become real.
Yeah. So you brought up a really interesting thing about when you were talking about being in the Navy. It didn't matter if you were arguing that day. Didn't matter if you disagreed with the person standing in front of you. You were still coming home.
Coming home.
They were still bringing you home. They were going to be with you all the way. So I know that you've been working diligently along with the volunteer chaplains to bring this idea of I'm with you all the way to the YMCA,
yes.
Columbia-Willamette. And in the midst of a culture that's like ready to cancel you if they disagree with you. I mean, we're in a state now, right, culturally, where everything's a war.
Mm-hmm.
You say anything that differs from what I believe, and there's plenty that you and we'll probably get into this stuff in the podcast, right?
Sure. Postmodern tribalism.
Yeah.
We'll get into it.
But whatever we disagree on, that doesn't matter because we're still with each other. It's the art of conversation.
It's the art of conversation, and it's the art of being a friend and loving on one another and loving each other.
Yeah. So how does that translate? How are you trying to translate that into the YMCA right now, the culture of the YMCA?
Well, the culture of the Y is to be there for people.
Mm-hmm.
I talk all the time about, we've got this beautiful building with amazing pool weights, But those are just tools to do what we do. We're really trying to build healthier, holistic lives with these people. Show them a bit of Jesus. They don't need to know Jesus to come here. That's what I use to love on people, right? Mm-hmm. I show them the love of Christ. I don't judge them. I don't want to be judged.
Right.
Why would I judge someone else? I just want to be there and help them. Whatever that means at that time and on that day.
Yeah. So here at the Y, because I know that one of the intentions behind even doing this podcast, I mean, there's so much to why we're doing this. I think this is a piece of it. Mm-hmm. But we want to bring awareness that the YMCA is so much more than a gym. Right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's more than a workout facility.
Yeah.
It's more than classes.
Yeah.
There's something we're trying to do in the community, right?
Right. Right.
And so what are along with this idea that you just told us about of loving our neighbors, teaching people how to do that, and just listening and being a friend regardless of how we differ in opinion.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the things we're trying to, and we can't unpack all of it in this episode, but what are some of the things we're trying to let people know about the YMCA that they don't know?
One of the largest things we want to let people know is we are here for them. I always use this when I talk about going into a community. Self-righteous service is, here I am, this is what I think you need, so this is what I'll provide. And that's where you get these organizations that'll provide a box of food that's got Kraft macaroni and cheese and a can of beans in it, where they don't have a can opener or a way to cook the Kraft macaroni and cheese, or even a place to refrigerate the milk that you're supposed to put in it.
Right.
Right?
Yeah,
What
I'm
good
already
is it?
hungry, by the way, so let's not continue to talk about Kraft mac and cheese.
Yeah. Yeah. So true service is, here I am. I don't know what you need. I don't even know if I can provide it, but I will try. I will see what I can do. And that morphs what we do in every community. Some communities really need one thing that another community wouldn't even find interesting or needed. So it depends. We go in with listening, and we do with that. We find a niche and fill it in a need.
Yeah. That's intentional.
It's very intentional.
Yeah. I love it.
Well, thank you.
So you're welcome. So Muddy Boots
Yeah.
is the name of our podcast.
Yeah.
And we're trying to help people understand that it takes a community.
Mm-hmm.
That you can't do this alone.
No.
You don't want to do this alone.
No.
You'll find yourself in that prison cell
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things we're going to talk about in the coming episodes that are going to help people to navigate life and maybe find their way to the Y, or find their way to a community where they can find themselves loved, find themselves in a place where they can be supported? We're big advocates of counseling, by the way.
Yes. Yes, we are.
That is a huge thing. We're both in it.
Yeah.
I say to people that there are people who talk about seasons of counseling.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'll be in the season of counseling for the rest of my life, personally.
It's almost like a hobby.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
I mean, it's a painful hobby, but
It
sure,
is.
sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. It's being open and transparent. Like when I preach at a church or whatever, and I tell them my story.
Yeah.
And people go, there's a pastor, there's a chaplain. Look at all the help he's doing, and he doesn't have it all together.
Mm-hmm.
But God's still using him.
Isn't that what he does?
That's what he does. Yeah. It's just, he won't let me die. I've tried a few times, and he just won't let me do it. So, I mean, it's like he's got work for me to do, so I'm going to just continue to do it. But that's the thing, is if we can rip the mask off people, we all got these masks. It comes from a shame mask, right? If you really knew me, you would not only not like me, you would hate me. And so we walk around with these masks on. And when you rip the mask off and find out that, okay, this is me.
Yeah.
Take it, leave it. You find out more people take it than leave it.
Yeah.
And it gives them the opportunity to pull their mask off too.
So ultimately, that's what we want people to do. That's what we're trying to get people to do, is take the mask off.
Take the mask off. Yeah, this whole thing with cancel culture and everything else, I don't even understand it. I really don't. I'm trying to bring people together, not divide them. And I don't understand why So,
Yeah. So what people can expect, obviously, is a lot of openness, a lot of transparency from both of us.
mm-hmm.
And our guests, we'll have guests from time to time.
Yeah.
And so the hope here is that people will take their masks off and people will find other people with muddy boots. We'll have to come up with a name for our podcast community.
Sure.
So if you've got some ideas, you can comment that in the chat.
Yeah.
We'd love to know what your ideas of what you'd like us to call you. I thought about like muddy booters, but that sounds really weird. Yeah. Did you have any ideas?
Not yet. No, I'm
Okay.
I'm the thing of it is, and Matt, you know this about me, is I like a good conversation. The last thing I want to do is talk about the weather.
Right.
So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be digging. We'll talk about uncomfortable stuff. We're going to talk about things that matter.
Right.
And that's where I want to go with this, because if we're not helping people, why are we here? What are we doing?
Right. Love it.
Yeah.
So it's probably a good place to end.
Sure, I think so.
Okay.
Why not?
So this was episode 1 of the Muddy Boots podcast. Episode 2 will be out in a couple of weeks. We're looking at doing this every other week or twice a month.
That's good math right there.
Thank you. Well, sometimes twice a month. Well, twice a month and every other week are not necessarily
the same things. That's right.
See? So I had to clarify it.
Yes, you did.
Okay. So twice a month.
Twice a month.
Messing me up. Twice a month. We will let you know the schedule before it comes. You'll see we'll premiere it every first and third week. Yeah, you're loving this, aren't you?
I am.
You're loving this.
You're struggling.
But what we want is for you to like, subscribe, share this. If you think that this could help somebody, because we know it can help a lot of people. And so we would love for you to share this. We would love for you to comment. Let us know some of the questions that you have, some of the things you want us to talk about, the conversations you want us to have. I mean, we're open to having whatever conversation you want. Both of us have really worked hard to become open books.
Yes.
And we're both in ministry, so that's a hard thing to do. If you've ever been in part of the church world, as Roger alluded to earlier, it can a lot of times be very judgmental. It's not always easy to be open, but we want to change that.
Mm-hmm.
There's other people who are trying to change that as well. We're not the only ones, but we want to be part of that conversation. So
that's right.
This is the Muddy Boots podcast, and like, subscribe, share. We love you so much. We'll see you next time.
Have a great day.